Imagine you move to one of the richest cities on earth. You get a job, you work hard, you send money home to your family, then the economy shifts. Your employer goes under. You lose your job. In most countries, that is a crisis. A bad chapter, something you survive and move on from. The United Arab Emirates, it can make you a criminal. Because in the UAE, if you are a foreign worker and you fall into debt, you cannot legally leave the country. You cannot quit your job without your employer's permission. And if your employer decides to cancel your visa, which they can do at any time, for any reason, you have 30 days to either find new work or get out. 30 days. In a country where accommodation, transport, and food are all tied to your employment status, if you cannot make it work in 30 days, you are undocumented. And being undocumented in the UAE is a criminal offense. This is not ancient history. This is happening right now. And this is one of the most visited, most celebrated, most Instagrammed cities on the planet. To understand how poverty becomes a crime in the UAE, you need to understand the kafala system. And once you understand it, you will never look at Dubai the same way again. Kafala is an Arabic word meaning sponsorship. And in the Gulf states, UAE, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Kuwait, Bahrain, Oman, it is the legal framework that governs the lives of tens of millions of migrant workers. Here is how it works. Foreign worker typically from South Asia, Southeast Asia, or East Africa wants to work in the Gulf. They cannot simply apply for a job and move. They must be sponsored. A specific employer must vouch for them, apply for their visa, and take legal responsibility for them. On paper, that sounds like a reasonable arrangement. In practice, it means your employer owns your legal status. Your visa is tied to them specifically, not to the country, not to a work permit, to that one employer. If you leave that job without permission, your visa becomes invalid. If your employer cancels your sponsorship, which they can do unilaterally, you have a short window to regularize your status before you become illegal. And here's the part that makes the whole system a trap. Many workers pay recruitment fees of thousands of dollars to agencies in their home countries. Just to secure the job in the first place, they arrive already in debt, which means they cannot afford to leave even if the job is not what was promised. In documented cases, workers have arrived to find their salary is lower than agreed. Their accommodation is a labor camp with 50 men to a room. Their passport has been confiscated by their employer, which is illegal but widely practiced. And because leaving without permission invalidates their visa, because they owe recruitment debts back home, and because their passport is gone, they stay. They absorb the conditions, work. They are not technically slaves. The law does not call them that. But the structure of their situation produces the same outcome. The UAE's economy is built in a very literal sense on this system. The skyscrapers of Dubai did not build themselves. The hotels, the airports, the artificial islands, the stadiums, all of it was constructed by migrant labor working under kafala. Approximately 88% of the UAE's population are foreign nationals. Of those, the majority are low-income migrant workers. The ratio of foreign workers to citizens is one of the highest of any country on earth. These workers send remittances home that keep entire national economies afloat. Nepal, the Philippines, India, Bangladesh, the money flowing from Gulf workers to their families is a lifeline for millions of households. But that flow of money depends entirely on the worker staying employed. And staying employed depends on keeping the employer happy. And keeping the employer happy sometimes means accepting conditions that no one with alternatives would accept. Human Rights Watch has documented cases of workers going months without pay, employers simply stopping wages. Knowing the workers cannot leave without losing their visa status, workers have reported being told, "Take it or go home." And going home means arriving with nothing, in debt having failed. One Nepali worker interviewed by researchers described being owed 7 months of salary. He stayed because, if he left without the money, his family would lose their home. His employer knew that. His employer counted on that. And then there's the debt itself. Several Gulf states, including the UAE, bounced checks are a criminal offense, not a civil matter. A criminal one. If a worker borrows money to cover basic expenses during a period of unpaid wages and cannot repay it, they can be arrested, jailed, a travel ban placed on them preventing departure from the country. So, to summarize, you are unpaid. You are in debt. You cannot leave. You cannot legally complain without risking your visa. And if your debt results in a bounced check, you can be imprisoned. Being poor specifically, being poor in the wrong way, at the wrong time, in the wrong country, is a criminal condition. Now, before this becomes a simple story about one country, let's be honest about the bigger picture. Because the UAE is not an outlier. It is a particularly clear example of a policy that exists in various forms across the world. In the United Kingdom, the 1824 Vagrancy Act, which made it a criminal offense to be homeless or to beg in a public place, remained active law until 2024. 200 years of criminalizing poverty. Homeless people in Britain were being arrested under a law written when horse-drawn carriages were standard transport. In the United States, anti-homeless ordinances exist in hundreds of cities. Sitting on pavements, sleeping in public, camping in parks, all criminalized. A 2023 report found that the number of U.S. cities banning sleeping outdoors had increased by 92% in just 8 years. The logic, when challenged, is always the same. We are not criminalizing poverty itself, merely specific behaviors associated with poverty. But when the only people engaging in those behaviors are people with no alternatives, the distinction collapses. You are not criminalizing the act of sleeping. You are criminalizing sleeping without a home. In 2024, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled, in Grants Pass v. Johnson, that cities can enforce bans on camping in public spaces even when there is insufficient shelter available. Meaning, it is legal to punish people for doing the only thing they can do. Same logic, different skyline. What makes the Gulf states such a stark case study is not that they are uniquely cruel. It is that the contrast is so visible and so deliberately managed. Dubai is a city designed to project a specific image, and that image does not include poverty. Not because poverty does not exist there, it does, extensively, but because it has been architecturally and legally zoned out of the frame. The labor camps where migrant workers live are not near the tourist areas. They are not visible from the Burj Khalifa. They are not on the walking tour. This is not accidental. Separation is deliberate. Image is curated. And social media has made it worse. Millions of people visit Dubai every year, photograph the gold, the yachts, the brunch spreads, the indoor ski slopes, and post it as aspirational content. And that content generates more tourism, which funds more construction, which requires more migrant labor, which perpetuates the system. The influencers are not villains. Most of them have no idea. The workers who built the hotel they are standing in are 12 kilometers away in a dormitory, invisible, legally unable to leave. 2 worlds. 1 postcode. 1 carefully maintained illusion. To be fair, and this story demands fairness, the UAE has made reforms. In 2021, the UAE announced significant changes to the kafala system. Workers can now, in theory, change jobs without employer permission in certain circumstances. A minimum wage framework was introduced. Some protections around passport confiscation were strengthened. Human rights organizations acknowledged the changes. They also noted that the gap between announced policy and lived reality remains enormous. Laws that exist on paper and laws that are enforced are not the same thing. Workers still report passport confiscation. Salary disputes still get workers deported rather than compensated. The structural power imbalance, one employer controlling one worker's entire legal existence in a foreign country, has not been fundamentally dismantled. Real reform looks like this. A worker who is wronged can report it without losing their visa, can access legal support without speaking the language of the legal system, can leave a bad employer and find a better one without a 30-day countdown. That system does not yet exist in full, not in the UAE, not in most of the Gulf. And until it does, being poor in the wrong place, being the wrong person in the wrong economic circumstances, remains functionally a crime. The next time you see a video of Dubai, the gold, the speed, the impossible architecture, I want you to think about what you are not seeing. Not because Dubai is uniquely evil, but because every city with a perfect exterior has a infrastructure holding it up. And that infrastructure is always made of people. The question worth asking about Dubai, about London, about every city that sweeps its poor out of the frame is simple. Who built this? Where are they now? And what happens to them when the work runs out? Kaya Studio. Dark history, buried truths, real stories. Subscribe, because the comfortable version of the world is the least interesting one.